Here are two products. They look almost identical. They cost about the same. They sit side by side in every supermarket in the world. This one is butter. It's thousands of years old. It was eaten by pharaohs, Roman legionnaires, and medieval peasants. And this one is margarine. It's just over 150 years old, and it wasn't created in a kitchen. It was created in a laboratory, by order of an emperor, for the army and the poor. But here's what's interesting. At one point, margarine didn't just take butter's place on the tables of millions of people. It nearly destroyed an entire industry. Farmers lost everything. In some U.S. states, selling yellow margarine could land you in prison. A real, actual prison sentence. Pause. Moves closer to the camera. Someone really, really wanted you to forget what real butter is. Today, I'm going to tell you who and how it almost worked. Hi! Today we have a very delicious topic, literally. But before we start, a small test. You're at home right now, go to the fridge. What's in there? Butter or margarine? Or do you not even check? Do you just buy whatever is packaged beautifully? Most people don't know the difference. And that's not their fault. Because for nearly 100 years they have been systematically told that there is no difference, or that margarine is even better. This was one of the greatest marketing operations in human food history, and it changed what sits on your table to this day. American dairy farms in the 19th century. That was an entire world. Millions of families, thousands of small farms. Butter was money. It was stability. It was everything. And then he appeared. Margarine, and a war began. A real legal, economic, and scientific war which lasted for nearly a century. But to understand why all of this happened, we have to go back to 1869, to a French emperor, and to the man who won a contest for the cheapest butter in the world. 1869, France. Napoleon III, not that Napoleon but his nephew, announces a contest. The task sounds simple and cynical at the same time. Create a cheap substitute for butter for the army and the poor. Real butter is expensive. The army is huge. The poor are even more numerous. We need something cheaper. And this contest is won by chemist Hippolyte Maurice. He takes beef tallow, the very fat left over from processing carcasses, and mixes it with milk and water under pressure. He gets a white paste. It looks like butter. It has a similar texture. It doesn't spoil as quickly, and it costs much less. He calls it oleomargarine, from the Latin oleum, oil, and the Greek margarites, pearl, an oil pearl, a beautiful name for a product made of beef fat. Napoleon III is thrilled. He issues a patent. Production begins. And then something happens that no one expected. Margarine goes beyond the army barracks and poor neighborhoods. It hits the market, and people start buying it, because it's cheap, because it looks like butter, because it's something you can live with. In 1874, margarine crosses the Atlantic. It arrives in the U.S., and that's where the real drama begins. Imagine an American farmer in the 1870s. He keeps cows. He milks them every morning. His wife churns the butter. They take it to market. This is their income, their everything. And suddenly, a product appears that costs half as much. It looks the same, and it's being sold everywhere. The dairy lobby, which was very organized even back then, raises the alarm. They go to Congress, and Congress listens. 1886, the Margarine Act is passed, the first federal law regulating margarine. It introduces a special tax on production and sales, $2 a pound for colored margarine, and 1/4 cent for uncolored. Why did the price difference depend on color? This is the key moment. Because margarine is naturally white, almost like lard, and to make it look like butter, they colored it yellow. It was exactly this yellow color that scared farmers the most, because it was what deceived the customers. And then some states decided to act even more radically. 18 states passed their own laws. Some banned the sale of yellow margarine entirely. In Vermont, New Hampshire, and several other states, the sale of colored margarine was a criminal offense. Criminal. That means you could go to jail for a piece of yellow margarine. Canada went even further. They banned any kind of margarine altogether, and this ban lasted until 1948. 48 years, a total ban. But the margarine industry wasn't about to give up, and they found a brilliant way out. So, selling yellow margarine is forbidden. A fine, maybe prison. What does the margarine company do? They sell white margarine, with a small capsule inside the package, and inside the capsule is yellow food coloring. The customer comes home, opens the pack, breaks the capsule, and mixes the dye into the margarine themselves, with their own hands, by their own choice. The company has nothing to do with it. They sold a white product. What you do with it at home is your business. This went on for decades. Millions of American housewives mixed yellow dye into their margarine every morning before breakfast. It was the norm. And here is the question. Why did people buy margarine at all if it was so inconvenient? Why not just get butter? The answer is simple and sad. Money. Margarine was significantly cheaper. For poor families, this wasn't a choice of taste. It was a choice of survival. And now, the part that will make you look at a pack of margarine with entirely different eyes. The 20th century. Margarine evolves. Beef fat is replaced by vegetable oils, sunflower, corn, soybean. Hydrogenation technology allows turning liquid oil into a solid mass. It's cheaper, lasts longer, and scales better. And here, the margarine industry gains an unexpected ally: science. The 1950s-60s. American nutritionist Ansel Keys publishes a massive study, the 7 Countries Study. The conclusion sounds like this: saturated fats, those found in butter, increase cholesterol levels and cause heart disease. And butter becomes the enemy, a public, scientifically proven enemy of health. The American Heart Association recommends replacing butter with margarine. Doctors advise patients to switch to margarine. The government includes these recommendations in food standards. Butter is bad. Margarine is good. This becomes the official stance. The dairy industry is in a panic. Butter sales fall. Farmers close their farms. What cheap prices couldn't do, science did, or what looked like science. Because later, it turned out that something very important was missing. Ansel Keys' study had serious methodological problems. He studied 22 countries, but used data from only 7 in his work, the 7 that confirmed his hypothesis. He simply didn't include data from countries where there was no link between fats and heart disease. Later, this would be called one of the most influential examples of cherry-picking data in 20th century food science. In 2015, official U.S. dietary guidelines finally removed the restrictions on saturated fats, 60 years later. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is trans fats, the very ones that form during the process of hydrogenating vegetable oils. That is, in the production of margarine. Here is what happens on a chemical level. When you take liquid vegetable oil and pass hydrogen through it under pressure, the molecules change their shape. Trans isomers of fatty acids appear, or trans fats. And here is what science discovered much later in the 1990s. Trans fats simultaneously raise bad cholesterol and lower good cholesterol. In other words, they are worse for the heart than any natural fat, including butter. Do you understand what happened? For decades, people were told, "Don't eat butter, it's bad for your heart. Eat margarine." And people ate margarine. And margarine, especially the stuff produced from the 1950s to the 1990s, contained between 20 and 40% trans fats. By modern standards, that's just poison. In 2015, the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, officially recognized partially hydrogenated oils as dangerous and banned them in the food industry completely. They gave manufacturers 3 years to transition. In other words, the product that was supposed to replace harmful butter turned out to be truly harmful itself, and butter was rehabilitated. But the farmers who closed down in the 60s and 70s, they didn't come back. And now, a controversial fact that changes the whole picture. There are people, and there are many of them, who say this whole butter versus margarine fight was never about health. It was always about money and power. The dairy lobby wanted to keep its monopoly. The margarine industry wanted to gain market share. Science was used by both sides as a tool, and the ordinary consumer was caught in the middle, with a package of something in their hands, not knowing who to believe. Look at the ingredients of modern margarine. There are no trans fats there anymore. The law forbids it. There are vegetable oils, water, emulsifiers, flavorings, colorings, vitamins. It's a completely different product than the one sold 50 years ago. But here is the question I want to ask you. If the product has changed so much, shouldn't its name change too? Because margarine now is not at all what margarine was in 1970. And most people don't know that. And one more fact I can't help but mention. In Quebec, a French-speaking province of Canada, margarine was forbidden from being colored yellow. This ban lasted until 2008, which means very recently, Quebecers were buying white margarine, so it wouldn't be accidentally confused with butter. 139 years after Mej Mouriès won that contest for Napoleon, the problem of margarine's color still wasn't finally resolved. So, in summary, margarine was born as cheap food for the poor and the army by order of a French emperor in 1869. It came to America 5 years later, and immediately a real war with the dairy industry began. Farmers lost their businesses. States passed criminal laws. Companies sold dye in capsules to get around the bans. Then, in the 60s, science arrived and said, butter is harmful, margarine is healthy. Butter sales collapsed, farm businesses closed, and 30 years later it turned out that the trans fats in margarine were much more dangerous than any natural fat. Butter was rehabilitated, trans fats were banned. But this path cost farmers and consumers very dearly. And now, an unexpected finale. We live in a time when every second product in the supermarket has labels like heart healthy, low fat, recommended by nutritionists. The margarine industry was the first to learn to use those words back in the 50s, and it worked for decades. Next time you see a product in the store with a healthy label or free from something, ask yourself, who is saying this? Why right now? What is their motivation? Because sometimes a healthy substitute turns out to be worse than the original, and the original, which you were afraid of, was just food, the kind people have been eating for thousands of years. And what's on your table? Butter or margarine? Write in the comments, and also write if you've changed your view after this video. I'm truly interested. If you liked it, subscribe and hit the like button. Next week, I'll tell you about another product around which there was a similar scientific and marketing manipulation. A hint, it's also in every refrigerator. And it too was feared at first, and then started being advertised as a superfood. See you.